Hello, everybody, WABC listeners. This is retired New York City Police Department Captain Ed Mamet, filling in for our host, Kevin Schroeder, detective, first grade, retired, who is on another one of his secret missions. And if this keeps up, he's going to wind up being the co-host, and I will be the host. Anyway, today's guest is somebody that is special to me. Because I worked with his father in the police department, his late father, and I feel it's a connection back to my days in the department. His name is Kenneth Strange Jr., and he is a former FBI and Department of Justice investigator. And he wrote a book recently called A Cop's Son. Very appropriate title for someone like that. And his book talks about his fight against terrorism, fraud, counterintelligence, and things like that. So I think you'll find him a very interesting person. Say hello, Ken.
Yeah, hi, everybody, Captain and Joe. Pleasure. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Tell us about the impact that your dad's NYCPD career had on your own law enforcement career.
Well, it was a tremendous influence for me. For starters, living with a police officer, with a cop. You got to attend all the cop barbecues and the cop softball games, and he was also, I think, part of the Holy Name Society, and we would go to communion breakfasts with him. So, it soon became evident to me and my brother that the cops were good guys, and I always felt like I was in a safe zone with police officers. They were law and order, and you looked up to them, and they were you could see the human side of police officers. And so that, and then as I watched him over the years, his career, it was it was enlightening, if anything. Following him from Coney Island 6-0 to when he was commanding officer of the 6-3. And, occasionally he would even invite me to attend some of these neighborhood meetings just to show up. So I could, watch him, see his detectives. And I was in awe of NYPD and of my father, actually.
How many years did Dad do in the department?
Right. So he did, I think, slightly less than you, Captain. I think he did 38 years. He came on board in 1953, and believe it or not, he started his career with the Glee Club. He kind of a surprise. He was telling me that when he was a probationary officer, they gave him some questionnaires to fill out, and what can you do? What do you do best? And he was a singer. He was actually. He was in school plays. He sang in the neighborhood. They went to bars and all these things. So he put singer, and the next thing you know, they said Strange, and they announced it in front of all these people. They said, Strange, Mulrooney, you're going here to this beat, and McDade, you're over there, and Strange, you're going to the Glee Club. And so he was with the Glee Club for about six months. Began his career there.
Yeah, that's something I didn't know about him.
Yeah, I didn't know that until very recently myself.
For the audience, let me explain what the Glee Club is. The Glee Club is a group of police officers who would sing. I don't know if it's still in existence, but when I came in the department, we did have the Glee Club. But I'm really surprised to hear that your father was like that. He didn't come across that way, but he always had a smile on his face. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Is that a book, a Joseph Wambaugh book, The Choir Boys? Also, is there?
Yes. Wambaugh did a book called The Choir Boys. That's okay. Right.
Is that but that's a more metaphorical.
I think you're right, Joe. Okay. I think it's
for the audience. I forgot to omit that our program director, producer rather, Joseph Diamond, is here filling in for Kevin Schroeder.
Thank you for the promotion.
Hello, Joe.
Thank you for the honor promotion.
Introduce yourself.
I'm honored to be here.
So continue about Dad's impact on you.
Yeah, I mean, so and again, going back to the Glee Club, it was disbanded, and he always said that was a shame because, it kind of gave the NYPD kind of a little bit of luster. They would go to these events throughout New York City, and ladies and gentlemen, the NYPD Glee Club. So there was, something nice to it, and he was. He was sorry to see it go, but yeah, I mean the guy had an amazing influence on me. But he was a great father. He would come home, after doing his tour, whether it would be 8 to 4, 4 to 12, midnight to 8, and but he would say, let's go to the schoolyard, let's go out to the street, let's play touch football. So he became the dad, and that was his role. So I know he was a good cop, and he was a great father. So.
Yeah, well, I liked him. I didn't like too many people in the department. I liked him.
That's good.
Hey, give us an overview of your career, including your overseas assignments and the like.
Right. So, interestingly enough, my trajectory was headed towards teaching in the beginning, and it's interesting because I chose Spanish in high school, and I only did so because my father got me interested in languages, in Spanish specifically. And I remember in Brooklyn one day I heard him speaking Spanish in the basement, and what's this? And I went down there in the basement, and he's listening to this 78 LP playing Spanish, and he says, "Son, join me, and let's I want you to hear some Spanish." So I actually enjoyed practicing Spanish with him. And the next thing you know, I wanted to be a teacher in Spanish. And so I started my professional career teaching Spanish at LaSalle Military Academy on Long Island. And then later on, after I'd been overseas, in Saudi Arabia teaching English as a second language, I came back to the States and was going to grad school. And that's when I met a FBI agent, came to our school recruiting. They were recruiting, looking for people with language backgrounds, which mine was Spanish and a little bit of Arabic. And so this Mormon agent pitched me, and the next thing you know, I was on my way to Quantico. And interestingly enough, I wanted to go to the New York field office, and I didn't get the assignment. Instead, they gave me Newark, New Jersey, and I was like, "Oh man, I want to quit. I don't want to go to Newark. I've heard so many terrible things about it." But I did finally ended up in Newark, and I ended up on the JTTF, Joint Terrorism Task Force. Although my boss wasn't thrilled to see me on the task force because he thought, "Hey, as a new agent, you need to be on the on the applicant squad, interviewing people on the applicant squad." But fortunately, someone else saw that I had a background in the Middle East, and so I ended up on the JTTF.
Well, it's interesting. Something else I learned about your father.
Yeah.
He spoke Spanish. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, he would always drag us over to the junction over on Nostrand and Flatbush.
Yeah, by Brooklyn College.
That's exactly right. That's right.
My alma mater.
No kidding. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we would go there. We get haircuts. I'll never forget it. It was always machine on the side, a little bit off the top. That's what he would say to these barbers, and in Spanish. And so he would kind of go back and forth with these. They were from Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic. So he enjoyed bantering with them. And then he always liked different languages.
Well, rubbed off on you. Can you tell us about some of the most high-profile cases that you worked on in your FBI and DOJ careers?
Well, I'd have to say one of the probably one of the most satisfying cases that I worked on was a counterintelligence, counterterrorism case. This was during the beginning, just prior to the first Gulf War in 1991. And I remember receiving FBI communication. I was at my desk, and it was like Friday. It was a Friday afternoon, and Iraq had invaded Kuwait, and so we were kind of on a war footing. Everybody was getting ready for this war that was about to happen back then. And so in the communication, it said, there are people in your area of Newark, in your neighborhood, that need to be vetted. You need to check them out. And so I just remember, do I, it was like 4 or 5 o'clock, and do I go, do I go home or do I? And I decided, I'm going to go out and visit these people. And so I drove out to the place, and it was a suburban home. And when I got up to the stoop and knocked on the door, I could see these sandals out there, in front of the door. So I knew there was Middle Easterners there. And, the fellow opened the door, and, he was a nice looking guy and handsome and, businessman. And, I spoke to him in Arabic, and he was like, really like, whoa. And I said, could I come in? He said, come on in. And we sat down and we talked. And then his brother came in, and he was actually his brother was very suspicious, didn't speak English well. But this fellow listened to me. We had tea, and again, I felt very comfortable because I had lived in the Middle East for 5-6 years, and so I could banter with them, and I knew the customs, and I knew I wasn't going to push things here. But basically, I pitched these folks, and I said, look. You're in our country now, and this might be a chance for you guys to help the A team. Join the A team here, and so they listened to me, and I said, look, I don't want your answer right now. I want you to think about it. And so I said, I'll call you on Monday. Let me know what you want to do. So when I left the place, I had a positive feeling about it. And on Monday, they agreed to help. And it ended up, it had actually profound impact on the war, if you will. And I don't want to take credit for the whole thing, because it really was a team effort. But we had other agents that were able to take these people and work with them, and some wonderful things happened from that. And after it was all said and done, the CIA came back to us, and the U.S. military, and there was thank you, honors, plaques, whatever. But I think the greatest. The most satisfying part was knowing that, I made a small difference, a difference, and that we may have, they said it may have shortened the war by about 4 to 6 months. So, I think that was probably the most impactful case I've ever worked, and that was in the terrorism field.
So your language skills served you well in your career.
Captain, I was in the right place at the right time, and just everything flowed. It all came together, and it worked out. Thank God for the best.
Besides English, what other languages do you speak besides Arabic and Spanish?
Just the Spanish, basic Arabic, and basic French. That's about it.
Basic French too. Oh,
yeah,
you're quite a guy. So,
anyway.
Something to say?
Yeah, I want to follow up on that. But Ken, before I do, I just want to talk about our sponsor a little bit, Good Greek Moving. Our co-host, Kevin Schroeder, he recently moved, and he used these guys, and he had a great experience with them, good prices, good service. So, and they're one of our sponsors. Good Greek Moving and Storage has been named National Mover of the Year and the most referred moving company in the U.S. Spiro Georgiadakis, CEO and founder, was also a cop. So he knows the importance of safety and the risks of moving. All of his movers are screened and drug tested to ensure your safety. His movers are professionally trained at the Good Greek Academy to learn how to wrap, pack, unpack, load, and unload your precious belongings for a safe trip to your new home. Good Greek is your total relocation company that will help you find a home, sell a home, get you insurance, transport your car, take your junk, and move you. They are your one-stop shop for all your relocation needs. Good Greek Moving and Storage is also the official movers of 18 college and major league sports teams in the state of Florida. So whether it's a move across town or across the country, trust America's best mover, Good Greek. Schedule your move today at goodgreek.com. So Ken, I wanted to ask you, like, obviously you've had a lot of rich experiences, and I'm a bit of a writer too. What motivated? I say that very humbly. I'm not that. What motivated you to become a writer?
Okay, yeah, great question. So I've been writing since I was a kid. We in Brooklyn, we lived pretty close to a public library over on Flatbush and Avenue P. And so just about every chance I had, free time when I wasn't playing with my friends, I go over to this library and I just start reading these science fiction books by Bradbury, by Asimov, Jack London, all these books. And I just kept reading. I became a voracious reader, and I thought to myself, boy, I would really like to write. And so, about seventh grade, I started writing science fiction things, and I just found that this was something that I loved doing. I became passionate about it. And my father even supported it. He was a big time reader, and I remember once in a while Saturday mornings, if he was home, what do you have for me? What have you written? And so he was very supportive. So I took that, and then in high school and in college, and then later after I graduated college, I was writing for newspapers, and even when I went overseas to the Middle East, I was working for an English speaking newspaper in Saudi Arabia, doing travel pieces. So, and of course, as you know, and as Captain knows, once you have that federal career or that law enforcement career, you're writing reports, and so even though it's kind of banal and maybe it's just very very rudimentary language, you're still writing, and so that did help, and I always thought, once the career's over and I have more time, I think I'd like to do a book. And so I said I want to do 3 books. That was my goal. The first one was the Camino book I did about the pilgrimage with my wife to Spain. That was my first book. And then the second book was The Cop's Son. And I thought, for legacy, so my kids would know what their grandfather did, what I did. That would be. And then the third one that I'm currently working on right now about my Saudi Arabia experience. So that was my goal, and I'm 2/3 of the way there. And it's been very enjoyable writing, and I've met tremendous people, other writers are very helpful. They've helped me along the way. They've given me tips, and I'm constantly learning new things as I continue writing.
And I'm sorry, tell me again, like, what part of Brooklyn did you grow up in? You said around Flatbush, or?
Yeah. So Marine Park,
Okay.
Marine Park over there, 34th Street. We were right on the corner of our block was PS 222.
So I think there's something about Brooklyn that generates writers. I mean, if you look at the last 100 years of playwrights and script writers, and something in the air of Brooklyn.
Well, Joe, that's interesting you say that, because when I was a freshman in high school at Nazareth High School over in Canarsie, we were visited by Pete Hamill. Pete was the editor, novelist, investigative journalist, and very few people showed up.
And Shirley MacLaine's boyfriend too. I think.
Yes, you're right. Yes,
is that right?
And he dated Jackie Kennedy at one point. You're absolutely right. So I thought there would be hundreds of people going, and it was like 10 people, 10 of us. So I'm like in the first row, right? I could touch the guy, and I was just mesmerized by what came out of his mouth and the way he told stories and his life experience. And I thought to myself, I said, "Geez, I kind of like to be this guy. He's pretty cool." So that was a tremendous influence. And just to follow up on the Ray Bradbury real quick. So I'm about ready to retire from the feds. I've got about a year left, and I see an announcement in Los Angeles for Ray Bradbury's birthday party at this small bookstore. So of course I'm excited, and so I go to the party. There's the tiny little bookstore. It's like an indie bookstore, and there's a cake and there's balloons and everything. And so I grab a copy of Martian Chronicles off the shelf, and he's going to sign this book, and in he comes. He's 88 years old, and he's wheeled in on a wheelchair with Bo Derek, the actress, and she wheels him in. So I'm on a line, and then So I finally, we get to him, and I'm standing up. I'm kind of tall, and he's in the wheelchair. So I'm thinking, how am I? I'm going to stoop down and kind of yell at him, make him sign my book. So instead, I go into this catcher's crouch, and I'm like, so. But I'm thinking, oh, geez, don't fall backwards. But now I'm looking at him dead on, and he's signing my book. And I said, hey, Mr. Bradbury, you changed my life. I was a kid in Brooklyn in this library, and you took me to other worlds, other planets. And he looked at me and he teared up and he grabbed me in and he kissed me on the cheek. And I was like,
wow.
I got kissed by. So I tell the story, and now my friends say, well, so what? If it was Bo Derek kissing you, it would have been, that's a different story.
Ken, what I want to tell you and the audience is that Joe, yourself, and I are all natives of Brooklyn, so one big family.
We're a triad.
And the cop's son, you mentioned your family. How did you capture that to put in your book?
Yeah, so I mean, the book is, as you know, it's a true crime memoir. It's by the way, I just got an award for the book, which is always nice because I've never won anything in my life. So this book is divided into 3 parts, and the first part is the FBI JTTF. The second part, I'm overseas with another federal agency, an alphabet agency, and I'm doing fraud work overseas, and I'm based in Latin America, working in the Middle East. And then finally, I end up working with the DOJ, Office of Inspector General, kind of in an internal affairs role on the southwest border. So, that's kind of the way I finished my career there. But of course, in the book, I pay homage to my father. There's a chapter exclusively for him, which is called NYPD Blue, and in it, we kind of go through his career highlights. As he would always talk about, oh, I did, the Pope, I was part of the papal motorcade when I was with Motorcycle 2. And, we took the Pope to Yankee Stadium, and it was, so all of those things are in there. And it's all about him and the impression that he had on me and our family.
Well, he was a good guy. He helped me out when I was on a leave of absence from the police department. And believe it or not, I had to surrender my firearms and my shield. Even
really?
though yes, when you go on to a leave to a civilian position, I still had police power, but I had to give up my pistol and my firearm. I'm sorry, my shield. And yet I was subject to the police department disciplinary rules. So anyway, the only way I could carry a gun was I had to get a pistol license, believe it or not.
Right. That's right.
And your father at the time was in charge of the Pistol License Bureau.
That's right.
I said, I think he was an inspector at the time. And I said, Inspector, you're not going to believe this, but I'm on leave of absence to the state of New York, and I had to give up my firearm. I need a permit. And he got me the permit like within 3 or 4 days.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
oh, that's great.
That was my favorite memory of your dad.
Oh, that's funny.
Now, going back to him, what inspired your travel memo, your travel in your book, Your Camino?
So he was actually alive when I did the Camino, and again, this was my first book. I was decided to self-publish it, and I got a lot of help from Martin Sheen, the actor, who we met out here. We did some volunteer work with Martin in Mexico, in Tijuana, Mexico. So, Martin Sheen said, "Look, I've done the movie The Way." My Camino movie, The Way, with my son Emilio, and you and your wife, you really ought to do this pilgrimage. It's 500 miles in 30-something days, and so that's what we did. When I got back, I had written this manuscript, and it took about 5 months to write. And then I went back, I saw Martin, and I said, "Would you mind looking at my manuscript?" And surprisingly, he said, "Yes, I'd love to." And then, from there, he called me back and he said, "Boy, this is sensational. I love this book." He said, "What can I do for you?" And I said, "Well, a cover quote would be fantastic. And he said, I'll do it. And then about a week later, this letter came in the mail, and it was a handwritten letter, beautiful, like the nuns would teach. I think he went to a Catholic school, so it was like the nuns would teach him. The calligraphy was beautiful. And he said, Ken, here are 5 choices for a cover quote. Take any one or a combination thereof. So that was a big help for me. I do mention my father in the book, and only because at the time he was going through some health issues, and he kept telling me, Ken, I can see I'm on the 18th, getting close to the 18th hole. I think I can see the clubhouse right now. So, I put that in the book.
Your upcoming book, Land of Sand. Can you tell us something about that?
Sure. Yeah, this is a coming of age, believe it or not, a coming of age love story. I met my wife in all places, Saudi Arabia, back in 1981. But I spent 6 years in Saudi Arabia, in the Middle East. 2 of those years I spent teaching the royal family English. Now, when we say royal family, consider that there are 6,000 members of the royal family. And I'm talking about, you wouldn't teach women. It was segregated. So these were all boys or men. So I did that for a while. I had some incredible experiences. And that's when I saw the volatility of the Middle East, how dangerous a place it was. I mean, I'm there like 2 or 3 months, and the rebels in the country, they seize the mosque, the great mosque in Mecca. So there's a complete blackout in the whole country. But we know British nurses at the military hospital that are telling us that, oh, yes, all these soldiers are coming in. They're mangled, they're maimed, they're wounded. Oh, it's a terrible fight over there for the mosque. So, once the Saudis were able to get control, now they would be beheading all of these rebels, in various cities, throughout the kingdom. And I had a friend of mine said, "Look, would you like to go to a beheading? I have an apartment with a nice view, and we could watch. Right after Friday prayers, they come out of the mosque, and I think they'll be lopping off like 4 or 5 heads, 4 or 5 rebels." And I thought about it, and I said, "Geez, you know what? I'm going to pass on that because I don't think you could unsee." Something like that. So, stuff was going on. And while that was happening, the Iran-Iraq thing was going on. And then there was a revolt in the Shiite area of Saudi Arabia. They killed like 17 protesters. All of this was swirling around us. And that's when I thought, you know what, forget teaching. I'm kind of excited. Maybe I could do something in the, in the terrorism or counterterrorism angle, which is where I decided, you know what, I'm going to leave teaching, and I think maybe it's time for a law enforcement career.
What advice would you give to aspiring writers, particularly those coming from law enforcement?
Terrific question. I would say this as something I've done. When I started writing Cop Son, I did some research on who else has written books, memoirs, or even thrillers or mysteries, and I started with FBI agents, and I had a directory, so I would just call them and I'd say, look, I'm just starting out. Here's what I'm trying to do, and believe it or not, these men and women, they would take the time to work with me and give me tips on what to do, what not to do, and I really benefited from that. I remember reaching out to John Douglas, the Mind Hunter. He did the Mind Hunter book, and he was very helpful. He said, "Look, if you need a literary agent, I can help you there." So I would definitely encourage people that want to write in this genre to start, with the people with the organization that they're from, and start there, and not to be shy about it. Just say, tell them what you want to achieve, and just so positive. The response I got was positive and encouraging.
Well, since you have teaching experience, maybe you could create a school for that, for aspiring writers.
Yeah, I mean that would be terrific. I would love to. I mean, the world of writing, I thought, other writers, would be a little sensitive or jealous or defensive, but it's been the opposite. I met a terrific DEA agent a few months ago. He has a restaurant in Virginia, and he's like a bestseller. He does fiction stuff.
Is it Derek? Is that Derek Maltz or no?
No, I know who Derek is.
Okay.
No, this is Jeff Higgins.
Okay.
Jeff Higgins, a very interesting guy with a kind of a Middle East background. This guy was anyway. It's a long story. Jeff Higgins. He invites us to his restaurant for a launch party of my book, and he's interviewing me. We have all these people there, and he didn't have to do that, but there's just something about writers extending a helping hand to new writers, which I absolutely love, and so that's the way. That's the way I do it. Anybody needs help, I'm here for them.
Well, maybe you'll be the next Joseph Wambaugh.
Can I got a,
yeah.
Sorry, Ed.
Tell us, how can people contact you?
Yeah, so they can contact me on my website, Kenneth Strange, one word, .com, kennethstrange.com. My books are on Amazon. Cop Son is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And again, both books are award-winning books. And by the way, Cop Son, interestingly enough, Ray Kelly and Bill Bratton was so generous of their time when they found out what I was trying to do, and that it involved my dad. They were very open, and they said send the manuscript. And the next thing you know, there was a cover quote coming back from each of these gentlemen. So that there's nothing like that NYPD connection. So that was very helpful.
You mentioned Ray Kelly. He and I were contemporaries, and I'm sure he knew your father quite well, because your father was around when Ray Kelly was the police commissioner and on his way up.
Captain, my dad introduced me to Ray Kelly over at 1PP. So I did get to meet him that one time. And then after Ray retired, he was on his own book tour. And my father spent time with him on one or two of his book signings on Long Island. So, they were kind of contemporaries. They were friendly.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you for this great interview, and I hope that your career goes forward, onward and upward. Thank you, and perhaps we'll have you on again.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Now, Kevin puts in the part about if you like what you hear, right?
Sounds good. So, Ken, I had a backstage question for you.
Please.
So obviously you have a very spiritual perspective, and you've also served as boots on the ground, literally in many places. What's your take on what's happening in the world today? Do you feel like there's something seismic underway? I don't mean just in a spiritual. I mean, sociopolitically.
Yeah. Look, I'm interested in what's going on in the world, and of course, I have a geopolitical view, and I've been to like 70 countries. I'm really worried about our own country first. The stuff I'm seeing, especially, and having been on the southwest border, in El Paso, Texas, it's an abomination. I'm so upset that they're taking all our investigators, ICE or Homeland Security, and they're making them do processing, and they're not doing their due diligence, and vetting people that are coming into the country. And there's some very bad types coming into the country, as you know.
Well, you heard about the attack this morning, and
I did. Yeah. I did. Oh my God! Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And I was at an IACP meeting a few months ago in San Diego, and there were Panamanian border guards there. So I speak the Spanish, and I said, guys, what are you seeing there? Your border guards, and they're shaking their heads, going, "It's not good." And you know what? We feel sorry for your country. And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, the number of people we're getting through Panama. It was Panama, and the other thing is they are gang members." He said, "These are gang members, and we can't touch them. We've been told to just kind of shuttle them through." But he said they're heading to your country, and we feel sorry for you. So I'm really upset about that, and there seems to be nothing you can do about it.
I guess maybe this is a good. It's good we're talking about this. Imagine if the Romans had some kind of advanced warning system. No, right? I mean,
yes,
like
right. Yeah,
it took them too long to really understand what was unfolding.
that's right. The empire might still exist.
Yeah.
You never know. That's right. That's a very good point you make. But yeah, no, I'm certainly not. And all this woke shit, it's just it's crazy.
No.
I can't stand it.
Ken, my master's voice is calling me.
He's the Holy
Hey,
Spirit.
So,
What is it?
I will. My master's voice is calling. Ed is calling me. He's like, we got to abandon ship. So
Okay.
We'll speak. I'll speak to you further. We'll speak on the phone further.
And again, guys, thanks so much, Ed, Captain. Thank you so much. Again, it's it's talking to you is like having my dad back with me. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ken.
Hey, it's the Good Greek Spiro, and I have some exciting news. Good Greek has been awarded National Mover of the Year. You've trusted the Good Greek for decades with your family's moving and storage needs. Now Good Greek is proud to be the nation's top mover. So when it's time for you to move across town or across the country, trust America's best mover, Good Greek. Go to goodgreek.com for Good Greek, the National Mover of the Year.
Good Greek Moving and Storage, your superhero movers.